Right, so Simon Nott zooms in. Been a bit of a fraud, really, because it's my old mate Andrew Mount, aka Trend Horses. Hello, Andrew.
Hello,
Um,
Simon. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I've worked. It's about 7 years since we did that betting people thing. Obviously, we've seen each other since then, but not an
Yeah,
awful lot, I don't suppose. But so, what's been going on?
I've had two kids since then. I say, like you, I came to parenthood a bit late in the day, so yeah, I've got a soon-to-be 3-year-old and a just-turned 6-year-old.
I thought you nearly said. I thought you were going to say it soon to be three. Then.
Oh God, no! I'm not going down the Al Pacino route. Uh, did,
So,
did did you see that the other week when he talked about his relationship with his one? He's 84. He talked about his relationship with his 16-month-old kid, who texts him every day. Apparently, they don't live together. He says he's got a good relationship with him, and sometimes his son texts him.
no, I didn't. But does Al Pacino punt?
Probably not. I think we got there too early, didn't we, with the siring thing?
Yeah. So, how's it been? How's it been going? I mean, how's it been going?
Yeah, all right. What am I? I'm still doing my gg.co.uk column every day, and it's over 20 years now. So I think since I've known you, I've been doing that. It used to be gg.com, of course, back in the day. Gg.co.uk now, and yeah, still doing other bits and pieces for the tote. Still writing my racing and football outlook column, and I don't do William Hill Radio anymore. I sort of knocked that out on the head after COVID because something had to go because I was just doing too much. And I've also another column I was doing for Sports Lens. I've stopped that this year as well. So and that's helped actually because I think I was just saying yes to everything and sort of spreading myself a bit too thin, writing for too many people. And my my P&L has improved since I stopped doing that, and I'm actually in profit in the Racing Post Naps table for the current season. So, but the first time in about 10 years. Not in
Good man.
danger of winning it yet. I'm about plus £1.50 or something like that. So I still got work to do to win the thing, but that would be good.
We're going to go totally off the tangent of the thing that I told you we were going to in the order we were going to do things because you mentioned the tote.
Yeah.
Can you use your influence with the tote to get them to bring back the glory days of the Scoop Six, which is
Well,
probably the best bet that was ever invented
so
for publicity?
full disclosure, I am classed as a tote ambassador. I do. They have something called Stayers Club, which you opt into, which gets a sort of preview of the weekend racing and my sort of place pot punter pointers, I should say, and the preview of the big tote trifecta rollover race. And so I do other bits and pieces. I've done some consulting for them on the Scoop Six over the last few years as well. With a view to sort of like you know, revitalizing the bet, but it's not as simple as all that. There are still some things that are on the horizon that I probably shouldn't talk about, but are quite positive. But yeah, the bet died on its arse, really, didn't it? After Betfred took over, and with the passing of Channel 4 Racing and the Tote sponsoring that as well. And they couldn't. I think if the Tote wanted to sponsor the morning line equivalent on ITV now, it probably comes from their annual advertising budget. So that's a non-starter. When you think about the publicity it used to get, when all they did was talk about it, particularly when there was a big rollover, or, a big bonus on the horizon, they just couldn't get that sort of publicity for it now. But it would be nice if we could get to something near that level again, where we've got seven-figure rollovers as a regular thing.
Well, it was about the only thing apart from the Crook that transcended racing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did get a lot of publicity for the Agnes Haddocks of this world.
Yeah. So, what have you have changed your have you changed your approach as to what you're sort of doing, or you the same sort of formula for you? Say, you've been doing GG for about 20 odd years. You always were a trends person, spotted the form breakers, etc. Is that
Yeah,
still the basis of your form study?
yeah, I'll still use horse profiling, by looking for patterns in horses' form, and whether they go on best on right-handed tracks, best at a certain time of year. That's still part of it, but a lot of it now is stats using the Proform database and systems, and because I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Race Form Update, which was the third midweek newspaper? It's mad, really, when you think about the popularity of horse racing now. That it used to the market used to stand three newspapers. Race Form Update the weekend or on Wednesday, and Racing and Football Outlook on Tuesday. Probably a miracle that two of those are still going now. But Race Form Update, I used to write a system every week. I did that for years, and then I carried it on in Racing and Football Outlook. So probably for like 20 years, I was writing a different betting system every week. Things like Venetia William handicap chases in November. I must have sort of come up with that about 15 years ago, and still holds true to this day. Um, so and now you've got software like Proform, you can just save all those and churn out the qualifiers every time they run, and keep an eye on them and see whether they're still profitable or not. I'm just looking at my spreadsheet now, my current spreadsheet. The 8:30 at Southall, my one of my system qualifiers was Sir Joseph Swan, which I think is still running, and that was line number 62,339. On the spreadsheet. So yeah, I end up with anything up to sort of 200 potential sort of bets, lays, trades per day. So I just kind of use that to churn it out and produce a shortlist to help me identify races where I might have an edge, and the market might not have taken something often rather obscure into account. So one of the things I do is seasonal affective disorder and the impact it can have on jockeys, and looking at the likes of Holly Doyle and Tom Marquand when they come back from Hong Kong and Japan, and how they get on when they're turning up at Wolverhampton on Saturday night in the freezing cold, and whether they're going to be motivated enough to ride in a Class 6 handicap. And so some interesting results with things like that just can the jockey be asked? That's
When I was moving, I found a folder full of cuttings, system study by Formulator. I'm sure that was the Weekender back in the
right.
80s, and I've got them all. So I'm gonna have to send them all to you now and run them by you and see if
Yeah.
they still cop. Maybe the systems come back into fashion.
Yeah, I guess some just sort of never go away. But what I'm often doing, I'm generally trying to come up with new things. And uh, what I like listening to pundits and reading others sort of articles and the Racing Post Spotlight, because I like to look at things that are perceived to be true that I then test and often find out they're not. I did a weekly column for Gigi called Mythbusters, which was looking at these sort of things, and that's been replaced with a sort of weekly look at the Cheltenham Festival anti-post column, because everyone seems to want Cheltenham things nowadays.
Oh,
But
that
again,
was
it's
good,
like
that column, yeah. I,
it'll be back after Cheltenham, I hope, if they're still employing me. But it's like the draw at Newcastle on the straight course on the all weather, 5 furlong races over 5 furlongs to a mile. You hear pundits say, "Oh, first towards that stands rail, or drawn high, the right place to be." And it's often not because that's the quickest part of the track. It's just perception that all the jockeys want to race there, and every time there's a winner that races closest to the rail, the others then sort of seem to want to get on that rail as quickly as possible. It can lead to all sorts of trouble in running. And horses drawn in store one, which is perceived to be the worst draw by most pundits, they've actually got a really good record. And over the last year, handicaps of 6 or more runners on the straight course, you could back every store one runner and make a very good profit. I think there was another winner on that angle today, because as long as they're not front runners, they're just store one, tuck in behind runners, get cover, and get a clear run down the middle of the track. And they're often going off at bigger prices than they should be. So again, it's just I'm constantly on the lookout for what people think is good, and trying to do the opposite, and taking on last time out winners, and you know, um, backing low draws when everyone wants to be high, and vice versa.
well, I got to stop you here, Andrew, because you must be driving yourself mad. Because when we all used to frequent betting shops, the most regular thing you heard was after one, somebody said, "Oh, I looked at that one." You must have looked at about 200 horses a day and
Yeah.
had some sort of qualification from one of your systems. That must drive you. Do you back them all? I mean, you literally have 200 bets a day following these systems.
Yeah, it depends what I'm doing time wise. It's I can set up a bot just to say, right, I'm going to, I might have one race where, like, a horse qualifies on three angles, two horses qualified on two horses, one horse qualifies on another, and I'll just set the bot to back them all to like X amount for each time they qualify on an angle. Other times, if I'm sitting here looking at it live, I'll think, I can then work in things like, the market moves, late on, and if they're from certain yards and they've gone from 8 to 20s in the last 3 minutes of trading, then I don't want to know. And again, if I'm sat there in front of the computer and I'm watching all the racing and I can see that the inside is absolutely no good at Lingfield, and this thing's a front runner drawn one with another front runner on its outside and stalled two, so it's going to get hemmed in the swamp on the inside, then I'm more likely to lay it. And again, there'll be times when if I've got one single qualifier in a race, I'll probably back that. And whereas if I've got 6 out of the 7 runners qualifier on some positive angle, I'll just put a line through it and move on. So it all depends on, like you probably know, whether you've got to go and pick the kids up from school, or whether you're on making dinner duty, and whether you're traveling to and from the races. There's only so much that you can do.
So when you're sorting these systems out, I mean, you've got Proform, which is a very powerful tool. Do you just sort of dream up something and think, oh, I wonder if that works? Well, obviously with some sort of theory behind it. And what's the most obscure thing that you've found absolutely works that if you told anyone, they think you're a crackpot?
Yeah, I suppose like the seasonal affective disorder for jockeys, and is certainly one of them. And, I mean, mostly they're fairly sort of logical, and you'd like to think that you can sort of just justify it backing this because the system makes sense, and there's always a danger of sort of backfitting it, and let's exclude the ones that were 33 to 1 or bigger, and let's exclude these ones that ran badly last time out, and having too many sort of criteria, and cherry picking based on past results. But there's some that are, but again, I'm just looking at stuff I've got today. I've got simple systems like, I've got one here, Key Race, Castleford, Chepstow, 27th December 2024. It was basically a race that was won in a fast time by a Jane Williams horse, Castleford. And I think something like 7 horses have run out of that race now. 4 have won. One of them's finished second at 16 to 1, and 2 others were beaten. One of the ones that was beaten ran yesterday, which was like 15 to 2 into 15 to 8 at Leicester. This one today, Gold for Alec, won at Huntingdon at 9 to 2. I did actually, I messaged Chester Williams before the Twiston Davis one ran yesterday and said, "Oi, Chester, what's the plan for Castleford? Do you know that that race of his was running a fast time and it's working out extremely well?" So he did tell me the plan, but I'll keep that to myself.
I was going to say that is leads me nicely onto my next question.
Oh, and by the way, Chester has sired today, so
Oh,
he and his good lady,
congratulations, Chester.
the good lady had their first child. So congratulations, all right.
Fantastic. Now, you've just talked about all this stuff. You're one of the most knowledgeable people about racing that I know. But you're in a very much maligned profession. You put your neck on the line every day, tipping up horses, punditry. Do you still do William Mill Radio?
No, so I knocked that on the head. I used to really enjoy that, but I was doing so much sort of punditry writing that, and then when Child One came along, it was a case of something had to give, and being on the radio for like up to 9 hours a day, wasn't conducive to family life. And if I needed to sort of stop and help out and do something, and change a nappy, or give my wife a break from a grumpy toddler. If you're writing, it's fine. You can stop and pick it up later on. If you're in the middle of previewing a big race at Cheltenham, you can't just down tools straight away. Plus, I didn't enjoy it as much when I wasn't going to the studio. Pre-COVID, there'd be a trip to Leeds. Usually across a Friday and Saturday, night out in Leeds. On Friday night with some of the people you worked with, and lot of the young lads in the studio, and then when you're doing it in your office on your own for like several hours a day, it just became a bit dull, really.
Best curry I've ever had. That one you took me to in Leeds.
Oh yes,
Um,
I can't remember what that one's called. It's very very hard to pronounce.
but I mean, you do this. You stick your neck on the line. You put in your opinions out there, and especially these days, social media, absolute bunch of what Jack Lynn would call people. As soon as you might put up 5 winners the week before. First loser you put up, you're useless. I mean, why do you put yourself through it?
I suppose it's your job, isn't it? You know, whatever you do for a living, there's going to be good days and bad days, um,
Yeah,
and
but you don't normally get people giving you grief. Well, not that I've seen you
well,
get an awful lot, but I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, pre-internet day, I remember. Well, so not long, after the internet came out, I remember getting my first death threat. You know, that was quite exciting. But that was from a tipping service, or someone accused me of being somebody else, and just like that I wasn't Andrew Mann, I was writing under a pseudonym, and I was so and so, worked for the Racing Post, and he said. He ended the message with, "I have the power. I will kill you." So there's some strange folk out there. But yeah, it's part and parcel of it, isn't it? It's you take the plaudits when it's going well, and it's lovely when you tip a big price winner and everyone sort of says, "Oh, well done," and you got to take the rough with the smooth, really. And when it's not going so well, you sort of accept that you've not done great. And that's why I tend not to sort of boom winners and you know
well, not that
go.
vid.
Yeah, well, that was yeah that little clip was the old management at Gigi. They wanted to do that, and I remember feeling very embarrassed when I was recording that. Um,
So I didn't feel embarrassed at all.
but yeah, being a good winner and a good loser.
So, I mean, do you feel pressure though? In all seriousness, and if you
Oh
do, how
yeah,
do you handle it?
yeah, absolutely. And oh yeah, when it's going wrong, I'd often sort of talk to my wife, and she'd give me a little pep talk, and she'd say, "Oh, phone Simon. He'll help you get your head straight. He knows what you're going through." And I did at one stage think of running a counselling service for out of form tipsters because I seem to be the go-to person when someone's having a bad run. And well, I became good friends with somebody who just sort of contacted me out of the blue and said, I hope you don't mind me, contacting you, but I see you're sort of tipping a steady stream of winners at the moment. I'm struggling with consistency, and and before you know it, of course, it's probably just variance, and they're off again. And yeah, I've had plenty of sort of almost tearful tipsters on the phone or in the pub saying that I'm never going to tip a winner again, and then 5 minutes later, they're off and running again. You'll be familiar with some of the names, but I won't mention them here.
Now, you used to sit. You were one of the pioneers of sitting in Canary Wharf, tapping away, betting and running. I mean, is that still a thing anywhere anymore?
Well, it is still a thing. I mean, if you go racing, wherever you go in the UK and Ireland, you'll probably see a drone, and there'll always be a drone, maybe two, and there are people still betting and running mostly off the drone pictures. Obviously, the boxes at the track is a thing of the past now. That's when people talk about race courses and income stream, that was a big loss for some of those tracks. When you think about Wolverhampton, in the winter, they, if the weather was bad and the turf racing was abandoned, there were extra all weather meetings. Somewhere like Wolverhampton could race 20 times. I used to pay. There were five of us used to pay 720 quid for a box, 144 quid a person, and you could be sort of 3 grand behind, plus petrol money before you'd had a bet on the month, and that's all that money. You get sort of four boxes, 720. So every time there's a rubbish meeting at Wolverhampton, the track could be getting sort of 3 grand, from in running players that were just turning up to play one meeting off the fast pictures.
So
So
why,
it's
why has it
liquidity
stopped?
wise. Well, because rather than pay 144 quid for one meeting at Wolverhampton, or I mean, we used to pay 400 quid at Newmarket back in the day, which is ridiculous. Now they can get all the meetings on the drones for a fraction of the price. The trouble is there's not much liquidity there, and it's everyone I speak to who still does it says it's a bit of a grind.
Do
and
you
it's
still have a sort of you still have a go yourself?
yeah. I mean, there are certain tracks that I will play, not sort of using one-click software, but just basically knowing that there's a headwind. I want to be against the front runner at Newcastle, or I won't be intending to have a bet. When there was one today that blasted off at a short price, in front of Newcastle, and you could tell after a furlong that there's zero chance this is going to stay there. It's just a case of do I lay it for the win in the win market, the place, or both? And again, it's like the dead rail situation at Lingfield. Not been so bad for the last few meetings, but when it got down to sort of -2, -4, -6, it was horrendous on the inside. And so you'd be looking at horses, that were drawn one or two, or the front runners, and trying to work out pre-race who's going to migrate to that inside rail. But of course, after a furlong, after 100 yards, and that then you can play. And the danger of doing that pre-race is you'll get something installed too. The jockey's got a brain, and he'll pull it off the rail and come around the outside. So yeah, there are things I do in running, but generally early in the race. Once I know who's going to race where, particularly as well with the hurdle races, bumper races, when the inside of the track is absolutely churned up. Certain tracks it gets worse as the races go on, and then you can just sort of I mean, like Leicester, for example, when it's very deep on the hurdles track, you can look at where they're lining up pre-race, back the ones that are widest of all, and lay everything on the inside. Generally speaking, so there's things I do in running, but I'm not playing. Well, I've never played for big chunks at the end of the racing at one or nothing like some of them did. But,
Did
not
you
at my age. Not at my age with my dodgy eyesight.
have you sussed out Windsor jumps?
Um, No, in a word. You notice the first meeting you think, oh, you've got to be on the front end, and then the second meeting it's like they've gone too hard up front because everyone thinks you've got to be on the front end, so they're coming from off the pace at times. So yeah, not yet. It seems very tight, and there's sort of a couple of horses have run out or tried to run out, and it looks a bit of a minefield at the moment. So I don't think I've put up a bet at Windsor since it started, just because I'm not comfortable playing the track. I don't know what kind of horse I want there at the moment. I'm sure that'll become evident quite soon. But
Quite soon. The
nothing
next one's the 23rd of November.
All right. Yeah, yeah. I can wait. There's other things going. I mean, I love the all weather at this time of year. It's been a bit bonkers at times. There's been you'll get Wolverhampton daytime meeting when you want to be on the inside, and then the following day they'll race it in the evening, and you want to be as far off the rail as possible. So you just got to be flexible with these things, really.
So I mean, I'm just thinking about these systems again. So you've got these hundreds of systems. Have you not sort of condensed and found like the 10 really good ones that you would follow blindly every day that would show a profit?
Yeah, but they're so specific. Like I mean, Sue Smith in January is a bit like the Venetia Williams handicap chases in November. It's year on year is absolutely a given. But again, I've messed up that one this year. She had three runners on New Year's Day, drew a blank. Didn't have a runner until the 15th of January. So you thought, oh, frozen gallops. This is when it's gone down to like -10, -12 or whatever. So you thought, oh, the weather's obviously held up her runners. So she comes back from a 2-week break with three runners at Haydock last Saturday. I think, do I want to be with these or not? I like North Parade later on. I'll watch the first couple. Oh, they've run poorly. I'll leave the last one alone because I've got two horses I want to bet in that race. One of them's 8 into 7-2, still running. The other one, North Parade, drifts and wins. And again, today I've bet hers at Weatherby today. I think she had a treble in the end. But the one guess which one I've put up on my napped in the racing post and put up on Gigi. It's Maisie, which is again it was pure poor shot selection on my part.
So how much of your sort of income would be from your own personal punting?
Oh God, a very very small percentage. Because when so when I first met my wife about 14, 15, probably should know this, 14 or 15 years ago, I was basically apart from a bit of writing, pretty much sort of full time professional gambler. and then over the years, I've sort of built up the broadcasting, the writing side, the tipping side, and so that the punting didn't matter, which is just as well really given affordability checks and the trouble getting on. And again, things like a lot of stuff I did. I went through a stage of doing a lot of experimental stuff. Bots based on systems, and think, oh, what's going to happen if I do this, or I'll take my system qualifiers out of the race, and then I'll see what horses I'm left with, and I'll lay like the shortest one, or lay the other three. I'll lay them all at level stakes, or I'll lay them all to lose a certain amount of money. So I did a lot of sort of tinkering around really for a couple of years without really sort of betting seriously. But again, you can't really do that now, because if you start doing that and then like I've sort of playing this to small stakes, this bot, and like, oh, it's no good, I've lost X, and it's like, oh, you get a phone call saying like, oh, see, you've lost this month, and so you're sort of buggered for when it comes to trying something new. So
It's an extension to the rub down, that, isn't it? You've done your cobblers, and then they want to take your account away.
yeah, and again, it then becomes tempting to trade because you don't want to lose, and then you're thinking, well, yeah, I bet this at tens. It's now four. Should I sort of like lock in a profit so that I don't lose on the race? Because what's my current P&L this month, and I've got to be careful because this big meeting's coming up, and or again, just simple things like, oh, you've got two up in a multiple bet, and the third leg's running due to run. Do I want to take some insurance now? And no, because if I lose X amount on the exchanges, then I can't. I won't have enough in there, until I'm allowed to reload again next month. So there's so many things that sort of mess with your head nowadays that you didn't have to consider going back 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Do you get involved with laying them? I do remember on my office wall I had a an increasingly faded bit of paper about headgear for novice hurdlers or something, the losers line. You
Oh
remember what
right.
that was? You remember what that was?
Or was it?
Um,
I know. Was it like first time Hud Willie Mullins or something like that? I can't remember. But
Novice hurdlers, yeah, something like that. It was a magnificent set of figures for losers, but but you'd have to stick your neck out and lay some big price ones to sort of get the profit, wouldn't you? So, has that ever been your game? Sort of laying them at
no,
100 to 1?
I mean, I did do some work for an Irish pro punter several years ago, where he was looking for two or three horses to lay, per day. So I would just sort of say, it's like I'm looking through my sort of spreadsheet now, and I've got one here. Headgear, first time tongue tie, Mason, the sire lay question mark. I've got a tracker note on parish councillor, dodgy head carriage lay. I've got Casamento progeny on soft or heavy going lay. So I've got all these bits and pieces. But and I'd send these to him, and what he found was he did a lot of research on it. He found that if you laid anything over 6.2 in decimal odds, you wouldn't do any good. But so he was looking at the shorter ones. So again, you have to put it the other way. Would I back a horse at 1.06? Probably not. So do I want to lay one at sort of 16 or 20 to 1?
Isn't that what you'd have to do if you're sort of following a system to get the profitability out of it?
Yeah, and it's ever so easy to sort of look at a lay system and say, "Oh, look at this series of like 20,000 races over the last so many years." And if I'd laid all these to a tenner, I'd have made like X thousands of pounds. And when you start doing it, and then you go, "Oh yeah, loser, loser, loser." Oh shit, I've just laid one at 130, and then it's very hard to sort of keep that knowing, expecting it to bounce back into profit. So it's never really been my game. I'll quite happily lay, lay short ones. If I know this is a hard puller, or this travels well, it doesn't find, I'll put into lay it short in running. Um, I don't think this can win from its draw, or this one's the front runner into the headwind. And if the ones I lay, I'll be looking for the shorter the better, basically.
Andrew, just we're coming to the end of this now, but are you the sort of person that needs an excuse to bet or an excuse not to bet?
Probably an excuse not to bet. I think that's a good question. Yeah. So yeah, I've always enjoyed the action. I think is I never used to be that way. I mean, when I first started taking betting seriously, I'd sort of one or two bets a week or something like that when I was working full time. When I think about now the percentage of my income I was having on those horses, it was probably way too high. But now, yeah, it's a case of I'm looking at a race and I'm thinking like and again when everything's priced up to 100% on the exchanges, it does make me laugh when pundits say like, oh, you know the favourite's too short, but there's no bet in the race, and you're like, well, surely if the favourite's too short, there must be a bet in the race, or if you can rule out a 10-1 shot, then you've got an edge, haven't you? In a 100% book, there must be something that you can do. So, but yeah, there's so many opportunities. There's always a next race. But yeah, when I look at what I've played on today, I've probably played on about 80% of the races just because my spreadsheets told me to.
It's changed a bit because I remember when, like you say, getting your tipping service, and quite often, especially like on a Friday morning, sometimes there'd be very little of interest. So I could never quite work that out.
Yeah, very little of interest was code for. We had a good day yesterday. You and I went out on the lash, and I woke up late with a terrible hangover, and I'm not going to put anything up for that reason today. So.
I will share with everybody the best system to halt a losing run was to celebrate like you've had it spark off.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, doing your absolute cobblers and then going out and yeah,
Bottle of champagne or two, and
buying a bottle of champagne, pretending you'd won. I think we did. Yeah, we had a few things where a few times when we pretended we won the scoop six when we hadn't.
yes, right back to where we started, Andrew. So I think we should be talking again soon, really, because I've really enjoyed this. In the meantime, your mission is to get the Scoop Six back on the front foot
Well,
with
so
the tote.
I'm in regular contact with the toads, and if there's any news on that front, I'll let you know.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for your time, Andrew.
Yeah,
Good
cheers,
luck with
Dom.
them. Good luck with them systems, and I
Yeah,
hopefully catch up with you again soon.
yeah. I'm glad
And
you didn't ask me
I
for.
was
Glad
in
you
the
didn't ask
tote,
me for
by
a
the
tip
way.
tomorrow.
This might not be out by tomorrow,
Take care, mate.
whenever tomorrow is. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
See ya.